When we talk about metal bands that reflect upon history in their lyrics, there is one that we simply cannot avoid. No other group has such deeply reflected, well-researched and lyrically refined songs as Sabadu, with a name like literally no other band out there. And despite having only released a few songs so far, they quickly climbed the ladder toward the Power Metal Hall of Fame, spearheaded by their 2022 banger song Mighty Polish Tank. Before we can assess how much of an April Fool's joke this song really is, we need to talk about a really disturbing revelation. I was shocked to hear that Sabadu, a band that explicitly claims to make Polish tank metal, is not actually from Poland at all. Instead, the members hail from Canada, Argentina, Great Britain, and include everyone's favorite pirate metal captain with a tendency for racism and misogyny. I had no idea that Chris Bowes was behind this band as well, but I could have perfectly appreciated them without that knowledge. However, let's not focus on the band members as much and rather listen to what can almost be described as a scientific research paper of a song.
Fighting lords of Nazis, we are the mighty Polish battalion. My tank is much better than your tank could ever achieve. Fighting.
So, the first verse isn't completely off. Technically, Hitler was not a king but rather the chancellor. But I am willing to let this minor metaphor pass, since at this point he could certainly behave like an autocratic monarch. And yes, the situation in Europe was pretty dire in 1943. With the exception of Great Britain and the Soviet Union in the east, all of Europe was either keeping out of the war or under German control. That included Poland, which had been among the first states to fall victim to the German warmongering right in the beginning of World War II in 1939. But despite, or maybe even because of this long period of occupation, the Polish citizens brought forth an unparalleled resistance movement. In fact, the Polish Home Army was the largest organized underground resistance to German occupation during World War II. The underground fighters undertook all kinds of partisan activities, from sabotage, assassinations, and propaganda, all the way to Operation Tempest, the famous Warsaw Uprising in 1944. So I guess you could say there was a mighty Polish legion, but that's already where the song starts to get funky. The Home Army was not to compare with a country's regular armed forces, but rather a guerrilla warfare crew that needed to operate undercover. Their weapons and other equipment had to be bought on the black market or be airdropped by the allies over Poland. For obvious reasons, neither way is very convenient to acquire a tank. The Home Army could only be lightly equipped. The closest thing to a tank they ever used was the improvised armored car Cubus and a few stolen German military vehicles. But that was both during the Warsaw Uprising, 1 year later than the song's events. When making this video, I was really interested to see if there even was something like a Polish tank that could have been used in 1943. The claim that the Polish tank is much better than another tank could ever achieve implies that there is something special about this Polish tank that would be its Polishness. And yes, at the start of World War II, the Polish forces had about 500 TKS tankettes, small tank vehicles that were not very mighty at all, and 147 TP light tanks that were even slightly superior to their German counterparts. These tanks came from Polish home production and were backed up with a few French and British-made tanks, and all deployed in the defense of Poland 1939, right at the beginning of the war. However, these tanks were either destroyed or seized in the wrath of German blitzkrieg tactics, meaning that the Home Army had no access to heavy armor combat vehicles by 1943. Sorry, Sabadu, that's the best I can do. The song is also not very accurate about the events at the Western Front. Even if, near the end of the war, Polish forces and tanks might have participated in the Red Army's liberation of Eastern Europe, the furthest they would have gone would be Berlin. When Sabadu talks about punching Hitler in the face, they can only really mean that metaphorically, as Hitler pretty much took care of that himself. But all of that would have happened in 1945, which is still 2 years after the song takes place. So up to now, the song sounds more like something the History Channel would only show after midnight. However, there is a small detail that should at least have us puzzled. The specificness that comes with the date of 21st of August 1943, The only recognizable event this can refer to is the so-called Operation Belt, or Akcja Tasma. This armed action by a subdivision of the Polish Home Army is one of the greatest acts of resistance against German occupation undertaken in Poland. In comparison to the Warsaw Uprising, it's very poorly documented, but I've scraped together a few relevant points. In the beginning of August 20th, underground forces prepared attacks on 7 German border posts between the area of the general government, which is the part of Poland occupied by the Germans, and the surrounding annexed territories. All of them were carried out successfully, in a hit-and-run fashion, leading to few Polish casualties as the price for 7 destroyed stations. I could not find the exact locations of these stations, but at least one of them must have been near Sieczycki, in modern-day western Poland, because that's where a leading figure of the rebels, Tadeusz Zawadzki, is recorded to have died in the fights of that night. His death could stand symbolically for the whole Home Army. They were all brave inhabitants of their home that resisted obvious injustice to the best of their abilities, but in the end, the violence of the German occupation machinery suppressed their revolts. I think this is about as much as a historical connection as we can credit the song with, since the lines sung in Polish translate more to traditional kinds of food and drinking than to any historical references. I was surprised to find some actual fixed points in history that this song refers to, even though it has a very loose frame of interpretation. I know it is meant as a joke, but I'd still be interested what you think of the song and Sabadu in general. Is it in bad taste to parody such serious topics, especially since the band has an outsider's standpoint toward the topic? Or is it just a fun way to enjoy music with a bit of historical fiction? On the musical side, the obvious orientation on Sabaton's music works out pretty successfully, and as a fan of slower power metal, I think it's a really nice tune and I will stay excited for more Sabadu songs. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new today. Even if it's just not to believe any tank-themed power metal band lyrics. Should we do more songs of a less serious nature in the future? Or should we stick with the regular dusty content? If you have any specific requests for songs or bands, just hit me up. See you soon, and until next time, stay true.